for joining us again. My name is Alfonso Barrera. I am the founder of Hispanic Pro. Again, thank you for joining us. This is our 16th webinar since the COVID-19 pandemic struck us all on a global scale. And I'm very fortunate and very happy that you're able to join us today, and that we have some subject matter experts that know a lot about something that I started reading a lot about actually last month, which is starting a business. And some people think that that's something crazy, that when businesses are trying to survive and trying to figure out how they're going to how they're going to be sustainable going forward for the next couple of months, but even if they can make it to the end of the year. However, there are businesses that are starting, they're hiring, and it's a reality. So while some businesses might become obsolete, and for me, I hope that is not the case, because I do want small businesses to grow and flourish and persevere during this time. But this is also a great time that if you have a business idea and you've been thinking about having a go at it, this is the time to do it. Some of the businesses that have been the ones that have transformed industries have started because of crisis, whether it was financial or a pandemic like we're having now. But world-changing events have brought upon new businesses, because new entrepreneurs try to fill that need that new customers have. So, and we all find ourselves in a new situation, in a new environment, and that springs innovation, and that brings new businesses into fruition. So, like always, I want to begin by offering some opening remarks and to give a little forward about the webinar, and then I'll introduce our featured guests. So, hello everyone again, and welcome. We are living during a strange time in history. In a matter of a few short months, our way of life has changed on a global scale. Businesses and governments have had to change the way they operate in response to the coronavirus pandemic, and it is certain that because of these changes, things will never be the same. So what does that mean for entrepreneurs who wish to start a business? Should they even bother taking such a risk during these times? The truth is, there is a spike in new business and innovation after each global crisis. Each crisis spawned new businesses and introduced an innovation that changed our way of life as a result of having to adapt. Social media and e-commerce came after 9/11. The gig economy introduced ride sharing, property rentals, and online payments after the Great Recession of 2008. I want to thank today's panelists, as they represent a distinct set of values and experience that make them subject matter experts in their respective fields, and having taken precious time of their busy day to share their insights on the new normal of business and entrepreneurship. Dear attendees, let's begin our webinar by meeting our featured guests today. I first want to introduce Jaime De Paulo. Jaime is the president and CEO of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Jaime, welcome.
Thank you, Alfonso. Great to be here. Thank you.
Next, we have Hannah Fernandez. She is the chairwoman of SCORE Chicago.
Thanks, Alfonso. It's so great to connect with everybody.
Next, we have Steve Bernes, the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau for the Chicagoland area.
Thank you, Alfonso. Glad to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Next, we have Kenya Merritt. She's the Chief Small Business Officer for the City of Chicago Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Department.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to join the conversation.
Thank you, Kenya. And we also have Lema Khorshid, who is a partner for Fuxa Khorshid LLC, a law firm.
Thank you for having me, Alfonso. Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And let's begin by asking the first question. So what do you do? What is the primary function of your position? Jaime, let's start with you.
Well, you said it. I have the distinct pleasure and running an organization that's one of the biggest chambers of commerce, not just in Chicago, but in the Midwest. And we represent businesses, and our mission, our sole purpose here is to help businesses get registered, help businesses grow, and help businesses thrive. Obviously, with the Hispanic piece on it, but not necessarily. We serve all kinds of businesses. So that's what I do. We have a team of 10, which is a very good team, I might say. We small but mighty. And over the past few months, we have done a lot of work that I'm going to be able to speak about that in a few moments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime. And next we have Hannah Fernandez. Hannah, what do you do and what's the primary function of your position at SCORE Chicago?
I'm Hannah Fernandez, and I'm the chapter chair of SCORE Chicago, which is a nonprofit organization. So SCORE has been around as the resource partner of the SBA since 1964. So we offer free business mentoring and confidential mentoring to entrepreneurs, whether they're a startup or an established business. And my role is to really oversee the overall operations of the chapter, from volunteer growth, client services, to really creating partnerships for the chapter.
Thank you, Hannah. And Steve Bernas, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Chicago. What is your primary function in your position?
As CEO of the Better Business Bureau, I'm charged to make certain that businesses adhere to the standards that we send out and that we ask businesses to comply with. We're an old organization. We've been around 108 years. So we invented rating back in the turn of the century. And we're really about self-regulation. We want businesses to compete, but compete on a fair and level playing field. So we want to make sure that playing field is fair. And we also help consumers. We help consumers in buying and selling in the marketplace. But our slogan is a better business. We want to make businesses better, and we want them to thrive.
Steve, so the Better Business Bureau was the original Yelp.
We are the original everything. So we were there for self-regulation purposes. We started 4 years after the FBI, and we started 2 years before the Federal Trade Commission started. So we started before government was involved in protecting consumers and businesses.
That's great. That's awesome. That's a great story. And Kenya Merritt.
Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Kenya Merritt. I am the Chief Small Business Officer for the City of Chicago. It's a really lofty title, but essentially what it means is that I work on behalf of the residents and the business owners here in the city to ensure that we are building an ecosystem that supports the growth as well as the sustainability of businesses across all communities in Chicago.
Thank you, Kenya. And I know that right now is a busy time for the BACP, and I think you're the one of the essential points of contact for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups, and getting their affairs in line so they can be in compliance, but at the same time, if they want to have a go at it, like I said earlier, and start a business, your department is a department to go to.
Absolutely. So our department is responsible for everything from licensing to enforcement and all of that in between, right? And so my team is largely responsible for capacity building and supporting organizations such as SCORE and Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the BBB. We work really closely with those organizations to help businesses throughout the city. But I'm sure throughout the panel conversation, we'll talk a little bit more about the role of business affairs and consumer protection and what it means to business owners and entrepreneurs in the city. Thank you, Alfonso.
Of course, thank you. And Lemma, can you tell us a little bit about your position and your role?
Sure, I'm a partner at a boutique law firm here in Chicago, Alfonso, and I mainly service small to mid-sized closely held businesses. So I've been working for the last 15 years providing legal solutions for anyone from a startup to an IPO. So I have a full range of legal experience.
Great, thank you so much, Lemma. And I know your service also is very much in demand right now, for sure, and especially because we have to look at our contracts, right? There's so many businesses that are looking over at the contracts and see what they have to fulfill, how can they make their customers whole, and it's one thing where I think your services are very much needed, but also for the structure of someone who wants to create a new business, you're someone to go to.
Thank you.
So our next question is, why are new businesses springing up during COVID-19 when others are perishing? Jaime? It's
not that they're perishing, Alfonso. It's that the they can't open, for example. So they have to think about how they're going to reinvent themselves. So that's been the biggest challenge lately, especially in the Hispanic sector. Businesses are struggling and had to reinvent themselves. And you mentioned it earlier, construction has not stopped. I mean, there's all the construction programs out there from the city, the county, the state, and the federal government are full throttle. In fact, it's been better in road construction because there's less traffic. So I might say if you have a construction company, you're probably still working, and make sure you keep you 6 feet distance. It's been a challenge for construction workers, but it's still going. In the commercial sector, that's been the issue. There's a lot of stores that have not been able to open. So, for example, the manufacturing has grown a lot because obviously a lot of the manufacturing products come from China. So there's an opportunity for businesses to do their own manufacturing in the United States, and because of this, this scare thing that the viruses come from China, that kind of thing. So there's a huge opportunity for manufacturing to spurt up in Chicago, and Chicago is known as a manufacturing town. So there's a huge opportunity on that.
Jaime, do you think right now, if you're a small business or even a medium-sized business, that if you get proper counseling, proper assessment of where you are right now, that that you can pivot and pivot and also make it so that, hopefully, having everything that's, because it sometimes feels like you said, in the commercial sector, for small businesses, their hands are tied behind their back. But is there a way that you think that if they get proper assessment of their business, they can probably make it to the end of the year, and hopefully by then the environment changes and business can resume to some type of normality?
Yes, I think the technical assistance for businesses is key. Organizations like SCORE, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, that we are one of the lucky ones that have a small business development center that has the tools and the personnel to actually assist businesses in the finances, because the number one question is how they're going to survive, how they're going to manage their finances, how they're going to access a loan. What if they get the PPP? Can they use it for personnel, or can they just hang on to it and use it as a loan and reinvent themselves? Yes, that's key. And it's going to be key for the next several years, and how we're going to counsel businesses and how to grow, how to maintain, and just to how they pay their bills, right? And then they're going to pivot after that. But the key here is technical assistance that are offered at our office here at the Illinois Hispanic Chamber and the Women Business Development Center. Even Kenya's office has some great workshops that helps you do that. And SCORE, they're well known for retired accountants that are willing to help. So yes, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and make sure you reach out and get the technical assistance. Don't be naive. You need help.
Great. And I think that's maybe one of the issues in the Latino community, is that we're afraid to ask for help, when asking for help is probably the first thing that we should do, so that we have a shot.
And it's free help. I mean, I get paid by the federal government to run the SBDC, and by the state of Illinois. So we get paid. So reach out. The city, they get their own ways to get paid, but they get paid, and they're willing to help. SCORE is the same way. They're not going to charge you anything. So reach out. We are on the front lines, and use us as your best friend. Use us as, your right hand on your businesses, because especially businesses under 20 employees need organizations like ours. We don't have this, we don't have the luxury like big corporations that have staff at hand that can help them fill out those forms. They can help them fill out those tax statements, right? So that's why organizations like ours are key to the success of small businesses. And then maybe they can become part of the Better Business Bureau. That, by the way,
absolutely, right away.
The Illinois Hispanic Chamber is in good standing.
That's right.
So, Steve, tell us what is your point of view in regards to businesses that are starting now, that are beginning, or people that are launching startups, when other companies seem to be on a downslope?
Well, we see, I've been doing this for a long time. So fortunately for the last 32 years, I've been involved with the BBB. When I first started was the Black Monday in 1987, when the crash of the last part of that recession, that 80s, lasted the 80s. But like Jaime said, is there's new growth and there's new opportunities and organizations have to pivot. So I see a lot of organizations that we deal with. We have over 9,000 businesses that's, but we report on over 100,000 organizations in Northern Illinois. What we're seeing is that there are some that are thriving in this particular industry. They're looking different industries. They're looking for new ways. But a lot of businesses that we see that don't really need to ask for the help. But the ones that don't ask for help are the ones that actually don't know what to do, and they stick with status quo. And you got to figure something out. You got to really change with the times, especially with a global pandemic like this. It's going to spawn new changes in the economy, whether people not go out, whether people not want to use their credit cards, whether people use cash. I mean, you really got to sit back and think and really innovate. Innovation is key. If you don't innovate, you die. And the businesses that we see that thrive and grow are the ones that constantly innovate. The ones that sit back and wait, oh, this will pass, or tomorrow's different. That's never a good sign. You've got to look what's out there. And like you said, SCORE has this wonderful opportunity, and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and all the other associations that are out there to help you, especially the city of Chicago. So much information out there, but people are not educated on what's out there. But it's for the business person, the man or woman, to really understand the needs and wants and not sit back. I think the worst thing to do is sit back and say this will pass, because it doesn't pass. The only thing that'll pass you will be your competitors.
Definitely. And like you said, that the abundance of resources to start a business in this city are enormous. And I think that, like you said, if you're going to let your competitors are going to pass you if you don't adapt to the conditions. And, as long as the BBB has been around, I'm sure that you've seen, the cycle of things happen, right? And new businesses starting, and then some that didn't adapt end up going out of business. But obviously, all of us have the best intentions for the small business community, and that's to make those businesses, make them competitive, help them to be competitive, but also survive, whether we have a pandemic or even if it's something like a small hiccup where they need financing. We have those resources where we can put them in touch with people that can help them with financing and resources that will really help them stay up and running. Hannah.
So what I see is based on the clients that we see at SCORE Chicago, and even if you look at historically, in the midst of these pandemic and economic downturns, there's a lot of businesses that are emerging. And the reason why is that the entrepreneur, the only thing they have to do is look around and check out the current needs of the market. And so this is where you ride the wave of those opportunities. So for example, Steve and Jaime, both mentioned it. You got to go ahead and pivot, you innovate, and don't be afraid to seek for help, because to Jaime's point earlier, these are your taxpayers' dollars. We get grants from Congress, the SBA, to be able to provide these resources to you for free. So there's really no reason for entrepreneurs to walk on this entrepreneurial journey on their own. So there's a lot of examples. Alfonso, for example, there's a lot of distillery shops where, in addition to creating vodka, they're making hand sanitizers. There's also fashion boutiques who are now making masks. So these are just things to think about.
Definitely. Kenya, can you provide us some input?
Sure. So, I hate to think of, businesses either springing up or perishing, right? And I think about it as evolution, right? Like businesses evolving. And to Hannah's point, when we think about businesses that have managed to use this time during the pandemic, where we were in a stay-at-home order, to think strategically about their business, they've been able to use that time to pivot and to think about creative and innovative ways to change their business model. And that brings me to perishing, right? And so in order to be in a position to do that, where your business, if it was non-essential, is closed, that business, would have needed to have like a cushion, right? And what we find a lot of times with our entrepreneurs of businesses of color, sometimes to no fault of their own, we know that systemically, many business owners of color have challenges with accessing capital. And so when we think about the amount of funding that these businesses have in terms of cash on hand, we're starting already behind the curve. But where we have an opportunity to build up a little bit of a cushion to be able to sustain us, then I think those are the business owners that essentially have had the opportunity to sit back, to think strategically, what is it that I need to do differently to make my business profitable, or what can I do during this time now that my business is close to do something different. But unfortunately, for those that don't have that cushion, we are seeing some businesses that have had to close. And so what I would encourage business owners that are listening to the panel is to set yourself up for success. And I know that that's sometimes easier said than done, but it's really important that, you know, not only are you doing a great job at whatever your business model is, right? So if you're a baker and you are making cupcakes and that's your number one thing that you do, it's not only good to ensure that like the front of the house is good, right? Like your service is good, that your product is good, but it's equally, or I would just say even more important, to make sure that your back of the house is just as good, right? And so that means having an accountant. If you can't afford an accountant, using an accounting service, right? Or even just partnering with another entrepreneur that may provide accounting services, right? Like when we think about like old school businesses, there's nothing wrong with bartering, right? Like, so if
Not at all. Not at
right. So if you have, you know, within your circle, business owners that can provide support to you, and you in turn can provide support to them, especially when it relates to the back office functions of your business, it's important that you maintain that in a way that can sustain you through the times that we're going through.
Yeah, Kenya, and I want to go back to when you mentioned, you know, the funding aspect, is that a lot of small businesses don't have a tight relationship with their business banker. And that's key for getting, when these things happen, getting a PPP loan, is that, you know, having an established relationship really, it really comes down to networking, right? And letting them know that, hey, you know what, you know, it could be something as simple as, you know, as doing the golf awnings, like Jaime has you know, people think those things are cliche or not, or whatever, but they're not. They're very essential for business, because you're out in the business community. You're letting people know that, hey, you know what, we are open for business, but at the same time, this is where you make those connections, so that when something like this happens, you know, a banker who has thousands of applications in front of them will say, hey, well, you know what, I have a business relationship with this person, and it's in my best interest for their business to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So and we I think a lot of emphasis needs to be placed on that in networking, and especially, you know, the organizations that are being represented here, they all have activities throughout the year. Maybe right now they're taking a different form, right, in the form of a webinar or whatever. But when the world goes back to somewhat normal, which I know that it will, you know, we gotta be out there. We gotta be hungry. We gotta be, you know, going to a BACP event, a BBB event, an IHCC event, a score workshop, because you know, that's how we have a better shot at surviving, right? Of our business surviving, and not only surviving but flourishing.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, you know, again, just, you know, going back to thinking strategically about your business. You know, one of the things that we noticed when the stay-at-home order was issued by the governor, it felt like it happened so quickly. And so many of our non-essential businesses had to pivot really quickly. And I think about our restaurants, right? And I think about our restaurants in our neighborhoods where it's mostly pickup, right? And so they quickly had to pivot, where you no longer can allow people to walk in. You now can only do pickup or delivery, right? And so many of our businesses weren't prepared to be able to pivot to have like their marketing or the ability for people to purchase online, right? And so to the point that I mentioned earlier, this is also the perfect time to figure out where are their gaps in your business, right? Like once the stay-at-home order happened, where did you feel like you couldn't move forward? And it felt like you had to jump through additional hoops to get to the point where you needed to be, right? And so consistently evaluating where you feel like you're not at your peak, and then figuring out ways to get there.
Thank you, Kenya. Lema, what has been your experience in regards to new businesses, beginning, but also are there businesses that are probably getting ready to close their doors?
Yeah, so I look at your question, Alfonso, on two different levels. The first one is, why is there such a surge in new businesses? And I think 38 million people are out of jobs. This has been one of the first times that I think that everyone's basically on the same platform and the world has stopped. Okay, so a lot of entrepreneurs who have had ideas that they never executed because they had a corporate job or they had other obligations, now have the time to actually launch a business, to think about it, to move it forward, to propel it. Then on the other side, you have established businesses whose business models have been disrupted based on the pandemic, and in which case those businesses have needed to develop new business lines or innovate within their space to create more revenue or to ensure their survival. And I think, and a lot of the panelists have already echoed this sentiment, is now is more efficient and more effective in what you're doing. And I think that, I've done several workshops for SCORE and VACP, and what I want to say is the environment for supporting entrepreneurship hasn't changed, right? There are a plethora of services and organizations in the city of Chicago that provide resources for entrepreneurs free of charge. And, to echo what Hani said before is, your tax dollars are now working for you, and this is such a great opportunity, and you have the time and flexibility to actually take advantage of these resources. So I think, you're seeing people with budding ideas, actually executing or going forward with them because they're forced to do so, right? And then you have people who have already pre-existing, businesses that are forced to innovate and pivot just to ensure their success. And, unfortunately, in situations like this, you do have businesses that are going out of business, right? And either they're not relevant for the time, like look at special events venues, catering companies are suffering, music halls. How do you innovate in those spaces where you're really relying on public mass? So it's definitely, a very challenging time, but I think, to Steve's point, I think this is a time where it's going to force the cream will rise to the top, and I think it's going to force a lot of entrepreneurs to rethink what they want to do and then to take advantage of what's out there.
Great, thank you so much, Lema. And next is my next question. Stripe, the credit card processing firm, stated that between the period of mid-March through mid-April of 2020 this year, it handled more than $1 billion in sales from newly created businesses that began using its platform. In this new era of practicing social distance and touchless interaction, should entrepreneurs aim to form businesses that remove the use of physical cash as a form of payment? Let's start with Kenya.
Did you do that because you saw my face? Like, absolutely not.
Yes.
I didn't want to answer it. I'll start with them first.
So just really quickly, I think that works for certain business models in certain geographies throughout the city, right? Like I would hope that like if, you know, as businesses are thinking about just this new way of buying, right? Like I've gone into some stores where there is a sign that says, you know, we no longer take cash, right? And I totally understand that for safety reasons. And I think that we will start to see more businesses move towards that type of technology where you can only purchase with your phone, just, you know, in an effort to try and keep their staff safe, right? But I feel by imposing that across the board, we're creating barriers for consumers that may not have access to credit, right? Or access to a bank account. What we know in certain communities is that a lot of people still use the currency exchange as their bank. And so as folks are thinking about like, you know, how do I move forward in an environment where safety should be the priority for the consumer as well as for the employee, that we're not creating barriers for consumers, but we're thinking about all folks that may frequent our business for either goods or services.
Kenya, but you think that that barrier might be just the access to technology, whereas if we make the technology available, then that barrier is removed, because there's, you know, in areas of Asia and even India where people, you know, the poverty there is substantially higher than in the United States. But people have cell phones and people pay with their cell phones. So it's not, you know, that. So and these, but again, the barrier of technology was eliminated, right? So the software is free. Obviously, the phone is some way subsidized, and we even would do that now, where the phones are subsidized by the cell phone carriers or the other manufacturers themselves. So breaking that barrier of technology, you know, might help us where, like you said, not alienating a certain consumer segment of the population, but just putting the tools in place and putting it in their hands so that they're not left out.
Yeah, so I, you know, two things. One, I do think that that some of it may be attributed to accessibility, right, if you will, right? Access to technology, access to equipment that would allow one to be able to purchase and leveraging technology. And I think, two, that a part of it, and it may just still be a very small segment of our population, is just hesitancy to use technology, right? Like, you know, I was in Chicago lawn doing a walkthrough like a week ago and was talking with a banker, and we were just talking about just like our shared interests, right? Like we kind of grew up in the same area. I grew up in North Lawndale. His bank is in South Lawndale in Little Village. And he was talking about the consumers that frequent the bank and how even though we're in 2020, some of his clients still have a passbook. And I know some folks are like, what's a passbook? But a passbook is essentially like everybody has their banking app on their phone, but a passbook is literally a book that you take into the bank and they print like what's in your account, like literally type what's in your account. And so he still had clients that use a passbook. And I know for myself, like my grandmother, like she's still very old school, right? And so, and so again, I just think that there's this very small segment of the population that may not be, you know, not necessarily, you know, even if we removed all of the barriers towards accessibility, there's still this small segment that still may want to carry cash. And so I would just be leery as a business owner, eliminating all forms of folks paying you.
Obviously, it's like sometimes we're forced to make that leap, right? And it really is less painful than we think it's gonna be, right? So so sometimes it's changing with the times. Steve, what can you add there? Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of transformation. I mean, I see it right now with card purchasing, where I started seeing, and I know of people that would do it, you know, buy a car online, you know, but now, I mean, I know more folks that are really making that a $40, $50, $70 purchase, they're doing that online. It's
Yeah, a
happening.
lot more
online.
people are, they are doing more things online, and it's really transforming every industry. Now you can buy a car through a vending machine pretty much. It'll come down off the vending machine for you. You've seen those types of places. I think that the company has to remember, as Kenny said, is remember the customer you're serving and what your customer needs and wants are, because there's no two customers the same. We get complaints filed against businesses when they don't take this type of money, or they don't take cash, or things of that nature. So you just got to be very careful. But I think people need to adapt more to technology. I think a lot of people are slower to adapt to technology because they're set in their ways. But with the advancement of technology for protection of consumers is so advanced now, we still get calls from consumers. Can I put my credit card on the internet? I mean, it's to the point where they hear these horror stories, but there's so much safety protection out there for consumers. I think they just have to adapt more, and so do the businesses as well. And what consumers want, and looking at that, because that technology, I mean, I can't keep up with it. I mean, it's so advanced now comparatively when I started in 1987, when we didn't even have the internet. That's where today, in the phones and in the technology, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said, in regards to consumers being protected, I mean, it's incredible how when a scammer is determined, they can literally mirror the look and feel of a website, and an unsuspecting consumer thinks they're in the right place, right? You can easily be scammed or be pulled into something that, if you give away your social security number or your credit card number, the repercussions of that are going to be pretty fatal when it comes to your finances, personal and even business.
Exactly. We see both devastation to both consumers and businesses with stealing identity from the businesses or the consumers, whatever it entails. It's so hard today to determine, if it is truly a scam. You can't just look at it anymore like the old days. You'd see typos. Now websites are copied in a technology. You can't tell the difference. Like, you can't tell a scammer. I've seen many scammers go to jail. You can't tell a difference in what they look like. So somebody's always trying to separate you from your money. But the key to this for both businesses and consumers is education, staying on top of things, being vigilant. I mean, you can't stop being a victim of identity theft. No one can. I've been a victim, and previous Attorney General Lisa Madigan was a victim of identity theft. But there's ways to protect yourself that you most likely won't. And businesses should protect themselves as well as consumers, because there's a lot of resources out there that can help them. But consumers tend not to do the research. And that's probably the biggest frustration in my 32-year career, is businesses and consumers not doing the research necessary, and they wouldn't be victim to these scams or bad business dealing, because there's bad businesses in every industry.
Thank you, Steve. Hannah.
For many people, the fear of the coronavirus and COVID, it's really still true and real. And I definitely get it, right? The safety and the health of your family and those who work with you are of utmost importance. So I'm looking at this as an entrepreneur. So if that fear is real, then if you can create a business, an app that can go ahead and alleviate somebody's fears, then by all means go for it, because right now there's still no vaccine. And so if you can go ahead and find a way to provide that opportunity where somebody can purchase from you or do business with you without any points of physical contact whatsoever, then definitely go ahead and go for it.
Great, thank you. And I think with SCORE, I'm sure you come across a lot of folks that they come for guidance and assistance and have some great ideas and are working on that.
Absolutely.
Working on making that happen. Thank you, Hannah. Jaime.
Well, try to go to Totonilco's Tacos and try to pay with a credit card. Right? All of you Mexicans know.
Yeah.
But it's because they're set on their ways. They're like Steve was saying, they cater to their customers, to the consumers. But I think we're becoming a cashless country eventually. I find myself not carrying cash anymore, and I go by my day without even using a credit card. My office here is a Merchandise Mart, and I get this thing called Meal Pal that I buy lunches deducted through payroll. So I just go with my cell phone and get my lunch in certain restaurants. Even you guys probably have you fill your card at Starbucks, for example, you don't need any cash. You just, so we're becoming a cashless country. And the other day I was at the grocery store and there was a lady paying with her cell phone because she didn't want to use the credit card on the machine. But then the machine asked her to put their PIN number, and she really had a problem with that, especially with the COVID, trying to put the PIN number. So there's probably going to be a way you're going to be able to put a PIN in your cell phone number pretty soon, in your cell phone without even touching the machine. So I think we're going through a cashless world now, eventually. But Kenya is absolutely right. In some communities, and I know exactly the bank she's talking about, that they use the book. And I used to work in Little Village, and you get those old timers, they're set on their ways and they don't want to change. And that's just how they do business over there. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the change of times. And these folks have to write the CTA, and they got to get used to that Ventra card. It's basically cashless. You got to go refill it once in a while to the, to the check cash and exchanges places. So eventually they're getting conditioning little by little to not to use cash, in a way, But for the city and for the tax collectors, it's better to not take cash because it's a record, right? Cash, there's no record, right? So that's so tax collectors love the idea of going cashless because it's a record.
Lema?
So I'm probably not going to add that much insight after a lot of the panelists, but I think that when you're building a business model, part of it is looking at the entire set of your demographic. And I think you can never alienate people who are your customers. So I'm very old fashioned. I love books. I love newspapers. I love like old school everything. And yet I'm also very contemporary, right? I do technology. I use technology to engage in commerce. Having said that I think, to your point, is I think to get a lot of the older customers or the customers that are not acclimated to the technology platforms, it's a lot of education and making them feel comfortable, whether it's because of data privacy or someone taking their identity, or it's just how do they understand the technology so that they can effectuate the transaction, right? So I think that there has to be, I would be remiss to tell you, there's a lot more people that want to do it the old school way. I mean, digital is the way to go. Technology's as fast as ever. I think what's more important is that entrepreneurs address and not alienate their customers so that they capture the most market share. And I think that comes with educating older customers. The other thing is, if you look at business, it's about relationships. Right? Technology teaches us that everything is quick and transactional. I'm going to give you back more time. I'm going to let you do a transaction really quickly. If you think about building business, it's about building relationships, interactions, time over time over time. So I think it's, not only education, but it's also a balance of like maintaining that relationship while still providing the digital platforms and, getting the customer engaged in, the brand and the business. So it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting business paradigm because I think if you wean the customer on the fact that it's just quick and transactional, whether the switching costs, right, the customer is staying with you for a really long period of time also changes because someone's providing something cheaper or quicker or faster, and there's no relationship where someone's going to a taco shop and paying cash and then seeing the proprietors and like really crystallizing that relationship. So I think those sort of elements have to be taken into consideration.
Thank you, Lema. Following question. Are banks and financial institutions such as credit unions, but the traditional banks, are they lending money to newly formed businesses? Jaime, do you want to take that?
Yes, banks are there to make money. And when you have a new idea, a new business, yes, but you got to make sure you have a business plan done right. You got to work again with organizations like ours to the city to score and don't pay any money. We can do it we can help you, guide you through the process. It's a difficult process, but in a way, it's easy if you get the right tools. But make sure you have a solid business plan, and that's how the banks are going to give you your loan. A solid business plan, that's the key. You got to be able to project, short term, medium term, and long term. And the more solid the business plan is, the more capital you're going to get. So that's.
Steve?
I can't stress enough what Jaime said about a business plan and that you have it rock solid. So many people think they know what a business plan is and they really don't. So you need to lean on others like SCORE and Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and those other organizations. Even the city has those seminars regarding that because banks will look at it in a different way, making certain that you can meet their needs and they can have a comfort level in loaning you money. Yes, there's money out there, but you've got to have a plan in place. You just can't have on a napkin and going into a bank and getting money from them. So there's a lot of resources for businesses and there's a lot of organizations that can help them. But asking that and getting a mentor, I can't stress how much a mentor will help you, especially if you can find one in that industry that you want to get involved in or you are in. I mean, I have a mentor for over 30 years and, my mentor has helped me in so many ways. And everybody needs a mentor. I don't care, where what level they're in their careers or just starting. But there's a lot of money out there, but you got to have a solid plan, and there's nothing better than a strong business plan.
Great, thank you, Steve. Hannah, I know that you have a banking background as well. So, what is your perspective?
There's definitely always money for a solid business model and a business plan, but it goes back to what Jaime and Steve said. You got to make sure that before you even approach a bank or a lender, that you've got your financials in order, your business plan in order, your pitch, what is the return? Because you got to put yourself in that lender's shoes. If you're the banker, would you lend to you? And there's something about, the 5 C's of credit that never changes. Whether we're in a healthy economy or an economic downturn, you got to make sure that your character, your capacity, your cash flow, you're aware of the conditions that's happening right now in the marketplace. You've got capital if required, right? Because even with SBA loans, sometimes you need a 10%, skin in the game. So these are things that you got to go ahead and make sure that you have. But then to their point is that there's a lot of free resources in the city of Chicago. You could go to BACP, you could go to a lot of chambers like Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, to SCORE Chicago. And I know that LEMA also offers their services as well, for legal advice to SCORE clients for a 30-minute pro bono. So we really appreciate that. But definitely take advantage of the resources that you have right now. And as we speak, there's still $130 billion left in PPP loans. So definitely reach out to the SBA for that, because take advantage of it. And I think Jaime mentioned it earlier, if it can't be 100% forgiven, let's say you choose not to allocate it for payroll, then a 1% interest rate is nothing if you could go ahead and use that to go ahead and reinvent your company, pivot, and then really bring in a lot of profits and serve your market.
Thank you, Hannah. Kenya.
So I would just add to that, when now is the time to start thinking about new and creative ways to start a business. A lot of the times, in the middle of doing absolutely nothing, if you're at home, you think about that business plan that, you have put on the shelf, or that idea that you thought about decades ago, and you try and figure out, is it doable? To their point, think about it, but also be committed to the work, right? And so starting a business is not easy, right? I think a lot of times we make it seem like it's really sexy and cool, but it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of commitment to see it all the way through. But in order to do that, you do have to start first with the foundation. And so that means developing a plan about what it is that you want to do, why, most importantly, that you want to do it, right? Is it just for money, right? Then you have to be really passionate and committed, because it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. The journey to entrepreneurship is not filled with parties and lots of fun, and it's not a 9-to-5 gig, right? And so knowing what it entails, and then plugging into partners as well as support to help you along the way. I will say, in addition to what everyone else has mentioned, in terms of being able to talk with a counselor, I think Steve mentioned it before, a mentor. So as you're thinking about the sector or the industry that you want to go into, I would encourage you to even reach out to a business owner that is where you'd like to be, and talk with them and figure out what their journey was. It doesn't mean that your journey will be the same, but it gives you a little bit of insight about what it takes to be successful.
Thank you, Kenya. And I also, I'm looking in the chat, Antonio Guillen, who is a great friend of a lot of our organizations over at Wintrust Bank, is he wrote that Wintrust is making loans, and for PPP, if we cannot help, we can connect you to a party resource. So Antonio works out of the Pilsen branch of Wintrust Bank, and also I want to say Logan Square. So look him up. He's a great resource for money, obviously, because he works for Wintrust Bank, but it's a community bank, and they're a great resource. So Antonio, thank you so much for adding that into the chat session. Lima.
So if I'm answering the question about financing, first of all, Hannah, thanks for the shout out. I really appreciate that. I think echoing the sentiments of everyone else on the panel, it's all about being prepared, right? If no one's going to take a gamble on you, especially a bank, unless you're prepared, and you call respect from someone who's going to give you money and write a check. If you can show that you've been prepared, you have a well thought out idea, you've done your market research, I think those are key foundational steps to approaching banks and obtaining financing. But the bottom line is, we're in an environment where I think it's going to be tougher than ever to get loans, just because you're going to have to show some collateral. I mean, at the end of the day, a bank's just not going to write you a check based on a really great idea, right? So I think the combination of thinking about it from a collateral standpoint, of like being able to show that you can pay back the loan, or if you don't pay it back, that there's some sort of asset to secure the loan. I think that's going to be even even harder now than ever. But I think it's also going to, require entrepreneurs to really be very vigilant and diligent on presenting their plans. And I can't stress enough, talking about mentorship, what SCORE has done in the past. And all of these are retired executives that have had, just a lot of experience running businesses who will sit down and read your business plan with you. Because at the end of the day, it's about someone taking a gamble on your idea too, right? So again, preparedness, and then being very realistic about what you're going to need to get the loan is key.
Thank you, Lima. Next question is, what are some examples of new fraud schemes and scams that have emerged due to COVID-19, and what can entrepreneurs do to protect themselves? Steve, I'll start with you, because this is right up your alley.
It's our wheelhouse, exactly. What we're seeing at the Better Business Bureau is imposter scams. So it's actually going after businesses and consumers both. And what I mean by imposter is saying that there's somebody else when they're not, and they're trying to separate you from your money. So just if somebody asks you to do something in 30 minutes, whether it be a business or whether it be a consumer, that's usually the tip off to the rip off. The only thing you should do in 30 minutes is buy a pizza, and that's it. The ComEd's not going to call you and tell you that your electricity is going to be shut off as a business unless you pay. Or the People's Gas is not going to call you up and tell you that. Or the IRS is not going to call you and ask you for your information on your business or account numbers or things of that nature. So the imposter scams are really coming in alarming rates. And as Jaime said as well, the fake websites, even for the businesses who are looking for help and assistance, even governmental assistance, they follow these links and they go to some other party's site. They ask for confidential information, or they're phishing emails where they ask you for more information. And if you download some of this stuff, you can put malware and spam on your computer, on your corporate accounts or your personal accounts, and they can lock it up and hold it for ransom, and it works. As we seen last year, a police station in the south suburbs had to pay the ransom in order to get their computers back online. So it's pretty scary. So businesses, I was advised to deal with people you know and trust, and don't follow links. Go to the site itself. It's the SBA. Go to SBA directly, or Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Go directly. Don't follow those links because you never know where they end up going.
Thank you, Steve. Jaime, what do you think? Because I know the Latino community, we're a vulnerable. It's a vulnerable population, in regards to mainly because of the language barrier, right? So, what kind of input can you provide?
Yeah, well, I agree with everything Steve just said. But be careful of the notarios, right, in our communities. Those guys are, there's a lot of, especially vulnerable communities, and not just Latino immigrant communities, any community. Because when you're most vulnerable, that's when they come and get you, and they ask the right questions, and then you just fall right into it. So we get a lot of complaints, and we always tell them to go, file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, because that's the good way to tracking these guys and these people that they're not good people. But for example, in the Hispanic community, a notario acts like the guy that knows it all. And so a notario, for all of you that are not from Latin America, it's being a notario, and for example in Mexico, it's like an attorney, right? Here is just somebody that verifies his signature, so it's a little bit of difference. So if you're an entrepreneur business, if a notario is going to come and tell you he's going to help you fill out those forms and sign up for you, it's probably a scam. So I cannot stress more than just reach out to the local chambers there. And there's business organizations, the Women Business Development Center, SCORE, even the local banks will help you. The Wintrust Bank, community banks like that really have to care for the community. We will help. I mean, at the end of the day, that's who we get paid by someone else. So we're here to help.
Yeah, and I also want to include Rodolfo Medina over at Second Federal Bank, because they're there in Little Village, and so they are a great resource for small businesses. But at the same time, they know things. They know they can provide you advice of, okay, yeah, those guys have an outstanding, great reputation in the community, and they can also tell you, well, these certain entities or these certain individuals are not trustworthy. And I think, the resources are out there. It's just of making the questions. But you're right. Sometimes we find ourselves in a vulnerable position where, and especially in the Latino community, Kenya, what has the BACP seen?
So one of the things that we're being very cautious about is, to Steve's point, is how people are accessing governmental resources, right? So whether that's at the federal level, at the state level, for us, we've launched 3 different programs where we're providing capital to business owners. And so one of our priorities is making sure that people are doing that in a safe way. And so to Steve's point, like when you click on a link, make sure that you're looking at the website and that it's the appropriate website for what it is that you're trying to access. So for example, for all of our programs, you're applying for either a loan or a grant. So of course we're asking for very sensitive information. And so just making sure that you're going to the right website, and know that if you're looking for information regarding any governmental programs, you should be able to go to that government site, directly to that site, and get the link, right? I wouldn't click on any links or, go to any other sites where people are saying we're conducting or we're administering this loan on behalf of the city. While we will engage other partners to help us, 100% of the time, the link to that site is on our site. And so it's important to know that people are accessing the appropriate information.
So does the BACP provide a list of trusted resources to go to for loan information or lending institutions?
Yeah, so on our website, and we actually have a site that is up that provides resources specific to COVID, and that is chicago.gov/BACP COVID, I believe.
Can you input that link in the chat box?
Yep, I'll put the link in there. And just a really quick plug, we are in the process of launching a Together Now relief fund, which provides grants to businesses that have experienced either infrastructure or inventory loss over the past couple of weeks. So that should be on our site within the next week or so.
Thank you, Kenya. Lema, you're an attorney. I'm sure you've come across people who have fallen prey to or victims of fraud and scams.
Sorry, I do a lot of intellectual property work, and I think that one of the biggest scams right now is sending official looking letters from the United States Patent and Trademark Office seeking thousands of dollars from entrepreneurs who have registered marks. In addition, I'm seeing a lot of people take logos and names of business owners and then create fake LinkedIn profiles or create profiles on various other sites with that business owner's information to steer business to that site. I'm also seeing scams coming where people are sending documents from what they think is the Secretary of State, asking for maybe $100 or $150. And so the entrepreneur will look at it and think, oh, the Secretary of State needs a filing fee and write the checks. So it's just, and that's because people want money, right? So I think, part of it is just do some due diligence on the correspondence that you get. Seek, if you have an attorney or you've been working with an attorney, it's really easy, scan it in and ask your attorney if it's a legitimate correspondence. But then if you're working with other people or other people are soliciting you for advice, I mean, we live in an era where, information is right at your fingertips. So I think using the World Wide Web and doing some due diligence on people that you're going to do business with is always key. And then one of the other things I always tell people, which is not fraudulent, has nothing to do with frauds or scams, but if I were to do business with someone, I always do a litigation search. I tell my, business clients, I'm like, do a litigation search and see if this person's been sued before, and what the nature of the lawsuits are, because I think that a lot of people prey on entrepreneurs and promise them sky in the pie, sky in some pie. And, just because someone, looks official or sounds official, I still think you need to do the due diligence. So do the due diligence on the written correspondence and do the due diligence on people that you're going to do business with. I highly recommend that.
Lema, is that a service that your office offers? And if so, can you put the link of your website in the chat box?
Sure, I can.
Awesome. Hannah.
From the consumer standpoint, really just beware of the fake websites that Steve and Jaime and Lema and Kenya mentioned, because right now, because of the shortage of PPEs, there's actually a lot of fake websites that are popping up. And so you think that you're ordering a bunch of face masks or a bunch of hand sanitizers, and this is really just a means for them to go ahead and collect your information. So make sure that you verify the URL and just make sure that that's a legit company that you're dealing with. And from a business standpoint, what I've heard from, some clients coming in is that, they've been offered some great business opportunity, or they've been promised something where, well, this consultant, told me that he or she can go ahead and help me, but, I just pay them $50,000 and, 6 months later, I'm still not getting anything in value. I wish I would have known about, SCORE and, what you offer a long time ago. So if it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So just make sure you be aware of that.
Can we hang on for one more question?
Sure.
Because this question has to do with the one word that we've all mentioned here today, and I think it's going to be the word of 2020. So the question is: have the organizations you represent had to pivot? That's the question. The word pivot to serve your members and continue to be relevant in the COVID-19 era. We'll start with Steve.
Yes, our organization has pivoted immediately. We have we're a membership organization like a chamber of commerce. So our members are looking for more information from us to help them in this digital world today. So yes, I think every business has to pivot and every business has to innovate, as I mentioned earlier. One thing, please, if you don't innovate, you die. as an organization. So I think it's important to listen to your customers, both your business and consumers, make those changes to make them, to help them as best as you can. Because in today's world, if you don't do it, somebody else be picking up that piece up and running right past your competitors. We have competitors. Chamber of Commerce have competitors. Everybody has competitors in some way, shape, or form. So you got to innovate to stay alive.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you for participating.
My pleasure.
Lema.
I think that from my standpoint, it's educating and handholding our clients a lot more than we've ever done. I mean, my business is, is on the internet or on teleconference or so from that standpoint, I think just putting out more materials, more education, more mentoring, and then teaching our clients to think outside the box has been more of a, add-on service that we've had to do than ever before. In terms of litigation, even, the way that we practice law, has changed. We're not allowed to go in courtrooms. We've had to do hearings over the phone. And a part of it is, if you're arguing persuasively for a client in front of a judge and all of a sudden you're staring at a screen and making an argument, that person doesn't see you, they don't feel your passion. So I think from that standpoint, it's been an interesting way of practicing. But from a pivoting standpoint, I think, when your clients pivot and they're innovating, it forces you as an attorney, to walk right by them. So you're constantly thinking about it from that standpoint and how they can do better or be better. Because, at the end of the day, you want them to survive. It's a win-win situation. I think that for me has been.
And I also think that in consumers protecting themselves, if you have someone that wants to start a new business and they're considering bringing in a partner, or maybe before they have a prototype that they want to take to market, an NDA, coming to you for an NDA, I think is crucial. It's a way of protecting yourself so that you don't go down that path of then there was someone ran away with your idea or copies it enough to where it's their own now, and at least you have something that you can protect yourself, right, and not go down the litigation route, which could be very, very costly.
Yeah, very costly. And I think, Alfonso, to your point is, I think when people are scared, they make irrational decisions and they want things to get done quickly because they want the pain to stop. So I think more than ever is like you're retraining people to psychologically slow down and seek the appropriate protections like a non-disclosure agreement, not jump into a partnership because someone promises them that they're going to give them, $10,000 for 50% of their business and they need the money right now. So I think a lot of it is, people are scared. And so from my standpoint it's like you play part therapist and then you play part lawyer. And it's just, advising your client really appropriately about how to deal with the emotions as well as how to deal with the transaction. So that's been very prevalent.
Great. Thank you so much, Lema. And thank you for inputting your information in the chat box so that people can follow up with you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Kenya.
Yeah, so of course, the city of Chicago had to pivot in its own way. So City Hall is largely closed. And so all of our team members had to think about a new way of teleworking. And what we found is that for the most part, people are very efficient. I personally love using my own equipment at home because I think it works a little bit better than my equipment at work, shamelessly. But in terms of even just how we support the public, right? So one of the things that I can say that is just truly amazing about this administration is that they've been able to pivot really quickly and stand up supports for residents as well as business owners. So for business owners, for example, we've been able to set up 3 different funds that are unprecedented and at levels that other cities have not been able to set up, right? So we had a $100 million loan fund that we provided immediately from the onset of COVID, and no other city, including New York, had been able to do that so quickly. Then we also set up a micro business recovery grant, which provided grants to businesses largely on our south and our west side, and our immigrant-owned communities on the north side, where we knew that there were populations of business owners that couldn't access capital for a myriad of reasons. And so we were able to set that up quickly too. And so lastly, what has been set up is, we're in the process of setting up, is a relief fund. So for businesses that have been damaged or impacted over the past couple of weeks, providing grants that will get them back on their feet, right? Like, we were at the point of reopening, and then unfortunately some of these businesses are still in the period of pausing and waiting because they need to make changes or make repairs to their business. And so in terms of pivoting, I think we've been able to do it, and the city has been able to do it really well. And that's just the business component. Yesterday, the mayor announced, providing support to residents. So in a significant amount through a generous donation, working with the Resurrection Project. And so for many of our residents that unfortunately were unable to receive a stimulus check from the government because they may be undocumented or for other reasons, now they have an ability to get some additional support from the city. And so, yeah, we've pivoted greatly. It's a lot of work, but it's good work that we're doing to try and make sure that residents and businesses in Chicago receive the support that they need.
Thank you, Kenya. And you know what? I do want the BACP to go back to business as normal, though, because I do miss going to the workshops that you have and seeing the faces of all these folks that want to start a business. It's really inspiring, and I've run into some people there that they've done their homework, and I'm like, wow, I really do wish them all the best, and I really hope that they make a go of the business idea that they have, because they've done the work, they've done the homework, they have the passion, and there's nothing better than to hear that an entrepreneur was successful at launching their business. And I've run into those people through SCORE, because I'm the vice chair of diversity and inclusion for the Chicago chapter of SCORE, so I'm involved with SCORE with Hannah. But it is such a great feeling to see all these folks that are there. They're thirsty for information and want to start a business, and you're the your office is like the one place to go to. And like you said, you have resources for money. So if anyone's looking for money, that is on this webinar, and we're going to have the replay on the HispanicPro.com website. So everyone that registered for this webinar, you're going to get an email with the link to the replay. So don't worry, you'll be able to watch it. But the BACP, they have resources, they have money. So go visit their website, and Kenya put that in the chat box. So go there now so you can get their website address. Jaime.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course we pivoted. We just did the math the other day, because we like to beat our own drum, because nobody's going to beat it
definitely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So we just went through Google and realized that we got over 40,000 emails by businesses seeking for help, and we were able to help about 8,000 of them. And out of those 8,000, a lot of them reported. We were able to secure about $7 million in funds for businesses under 20 employees. So we did our job, and we keep doing our job. 10 of us working from home. I'm in the office today because I had a meeting downtown. But and now we transitioning to the next step, which what we're going to do. Now people have the PPP loan, they have a little money. How are they going to use it? Are they going to use it for a loan, or they're going to use it for forgiving the loan? So we are about to launch. In fact, we are hiring two new staff people. If you're looking for work, log into our iccbusiness.net. We have a couple openings there. And it's a technical assistance program that we actually going to go out to the communities with a banking partner and consult one-on-one basis to businesses and help them, reinvent themselves. We help them with their books or whatever the reason is. We are going to help them. We're hiring an attorney. We're hiring a marketing person. We are hiring a financial person that's going to go out there and give the one-on-one consultations for especially Hispanic business owners partners out there that need our help. So we have pivoted. We hire a calling center. We never had that. So we have a answering center now. So we are very busy. So thank you for the opportunity, Alfonso. It's always great. It's always great to see Steve, Kenya. You know how I feel. Anna, thank you.
Of course. And Jaime, and I also want to plug are the applications still open for your cohort?
Last chance. Somebody was talking about technology incubator. We have the #1 technology incubator for Latinos in the country. In fact, it's the only one. The Latinx incubator in partnership with 1871, which is, in terms of you talking to technology world, this is the biggest one and the brightest and the smartest and the best one. So we form a partnership, and we do have applications open, I believe. This is the last week. So if you thought about a technology company, if you want to grow a technology company, if you think you got the next Google out there, feel free to apply. It's free, so it's an opportunity for anybody who's watching to apply. So thank you, Alfonso, for that.
Thank you for participating today. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank the participants for being on a little bit later than we ran a little bit later than usual. Again, the rebroadcast will be sent, and information on the different organizations will also be sent in that exclusive email blast that will be going out. Thank you so much again. Join us next week as we'll have another webinar.
Alfonso, before you end,
Sure.
Alfonso, before you end, I just want to go ahead and note that even though the in-person events and mentoring has been suspended for SCORE Chicago for the past 3 months, know that you could still get mentoring via video or phone. You just have to go to chicago.score.org to get and schedule that appointment. There are also live and recorded webinars as well. So we're definitely up and running. And in fact, we've been busier than ever this past 3 months. So we're still helping those businesses.
And having a business mentor, it improves your chances of your business succeeding. And again, people that are mentor for SCORE are people who have done it. They've started businesses, they've managed them, they've sold them and started other ones in many cases. So you have people that know their stuff, and they can give you some great guidance. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We're going to end the webinar now, and take care, be safe and healthy.